In the bustling, optimistic landscape of 1958 New York City, a recent business school graduate named Norville Barnes arrives with wide-eyed ambition and a heart full of dreams. His search for a promising career, however, quickly collides with a harsh reality. As he scans the job boards, he finds that every desirable corporate position demands extensive prior experience, a credential he simply does not possess. Feeling disheartened, Norville walks away from the job listings, the city's towering skyscrapers seeming to mock his aspirations. Meanwhile, high above the city streets in the Hudsucker Industries boardroom, a profound and bizarre event is unfolding. Waring Hudsucker, the brilliant founder and president of the massive corporation, finds himself mysteriously captivated by the large window before him during a critical board meeting. He gazes out at the cityscape with a strange intensity before calmly taking out his pocket watch. After winding it with deliberate care, he places it on the polished boardroom table, rises from his chair, and takes a final contemplative puff from his cigar. Down on the street, a dejected Norville enters a nearby diner for a simple cup of coffee. As the waiter takes his cup away, it leaves a perfect circular stain on a discarded newspaper. It's right around a small advertisement for a mailroom clerk at Hudsucker Industries. It is a modest position, but crucially it requires no previous work experience. Just as Norville exits the diner, a gust of wind, seemingly stirred by fate, lifts the newspaper page from the ground. The paper, bearing the coffee ring dad, wraps itself around Norville's legs. He finally looks down, his eyes landing on the opportunity he has been searching for. At that very instant, in a shocking and inexplicable act, Waring Hudsucker hops on the board's table and runs with every passion he has. He leaps from the 44th floor window, his life ending just as steps into the grand lobby of Hudsucker Industries to apply for the job. Back in the boardroom, the atmosphere is anything but mournful. The remaining board members, led by the shrewd and ruthless Sidney J. Mooseburger, waste no time grieving their founder's sudden demise. Instead, their minds immediately race to the future of the company. Hudsucker's will reveals he has no family and is named no heir, meaning his controlling interest in the company's stock is set to be offered to the public. This prospect terrifies the board members, who envision losing their power. Mooseburger concocts a devious plan. They will intentionally drive the company's stock price down to rock bottom, allowing them to buy up the controlling shares for a fraction of their worth. To achieve this, Mooseburger proposes a masterstroke of corporate sabotage. They will appoint a completely incompetent and foolish proxy as the new president, ensuring the company's value plummets. Norville is hired on the spot as a mailroom clerk and is immediately plunged into a bewilderingly fast-paced and rigid environment. His supervisor outlines a dizzying set of rules, warning that any mistake will result in a pay deduction. Later, Norville meets with an old man that works in the mailroom, and he is much more experienced and fast to do his job. Norville, however, just randomly takes out a piece of paper and shows him he had big projects, and this is one of his developings. It's just a random circle drawn on a piece of paper, but Norville thinks it's his ticket upstairs. Just then, all the employees are called to pay attention to the speaker over the radio. It's a man upstairs announcing the tragic death of the chairman-president, founder of the Hudsucker Industries. To mark this occasion of corporate loss, they are called to have a silent moment of contemplation. As told, all the employees bow their heads down and pledge their respect. Soon after, a significant blue letter arrives. A top-secret confidential document written by Waring Hudsucker himself, just moments before his death. Norville's boss, wanting no part of such a sensitive delivery, expressly instructs him to take the letter directly to Sidney Mooseburger. Nervously riding the elevator to the top floor, Norville clutches not the blue letter, out a folded piece of paper from his own pocket. When he finally stands before the imposing Mooseburger, he bypasses the important letter entirely. Instead, he excitedly unfolds his paper to reveal the simple drawing of a circle, which he considers his invention. He passionately presents it as a revolutionary new invention that will change the world. But instead of being offended by his dumbness, Mr. Mooseburger looks at his appearance attentively. He is more interested in what he looks like, more than what comes out of his mouth. He even placed a cigar on his mouth to see if he fits a certain kind of expectation. Norville thought the man was mesmerized by his peach and had a chance to try on power, but the Mooseburger quickly asked if they could get to know each other better. He noticed Norville came from the basement and asked if he wasn't blessed with much education. Norville, enjoying his cigar, told him he actually went to business school and is an educated man. However, Mooseburger thought differently, and he questions Norville if he is sure of that. A series of chaos then happens following, Norville placing the cigar on a pile of paper, accidentally setting fire to a crucial contract. Then to fix that, Norville took the water filter and dragged it to the bucket where the paper was thrown. But even though the water dripped all the way, silly Norville couldn't help but try other ways to mend his fault. Mooseburger is caught in a phone call, and for a few minutes, Norville does what he isn't supposed to. He finally shattered a window when he tried to get rid of the bucket on fire, and this caused the remaining pages of the contract to be sent and fly out to the city. As Mooseburger scrambles to catch the papers, he nearly tumbles out of the broken window himself, only to be saved by Norville's quick reflexes. Mooseburger, witnessing the chaos the entry-level mailman created, sees not a fool, but the perfect pawn for the bankruptcy scheme he and his co-workers plan to bring upon Hudsucker Industries. He believes Norville's naive and simple-minded nature makes him the ideal, easily controlled proxy president for this scheme. In what feels like an instant, Norville Barnes is astonishingly promoted from mailroom clerk to president of Hudsucker Industries, as Mooseburger predicted. The company's stock immediately nosedived. The city's newspapers are in a frenzy, and one editor is desperate for a story on the mysterious new president. A sharp, ambitious reporter on his staff, Amy Archer, volunteers for the assignment, confidently promising to expose Norville as a fraud. She claims that if he was legit, then why wouldn't they let him be interviewed? She is extremely confident in her ability to investigate and get him the article he needs. Meanwhile, still grappling with his new and surreal position, Norville pitches his circle idea once again to Mooseburger. He earnestly insists that his invention is simple to manufacture and will be a massive success with the growing middle class. Mooseburger, barely containing his amusement, dismissively agrees to let Norville present the idea to the rest of the board, confident it will be a spectacular failure. Later, Norville finds himself in the very same diner from his first day in the city, where he meets Amy Archer. She masterfully plays the part of a struggling, down-her-luck young woman from his hometown in Indiana, and he is quickly charmed by her, though at first, he was completely oblivious to her attention-seeking attitude, finally faking a fainting spell. She ensures that the chivalrous Norville takes her back to his lavish office back at the Hudsucker Industries. When he briefly steps into his private restroom, Amy seizes the chance to rifle through his desk for incriminating evidence. She finds little except for a notice about an event for a club of successful people from Indiana. When Norville returns, she cleverly pretends to be from Indiana as well, and starts to make him fall for her even more. Delighted by this supposed connection, Norville impulsively hires her as his personal secretary. Soon, Amy immediately returns to her newspaper and pens a vicious, widely circulated article portraying Hookerooker's new president as a complete and utter imbecile. The next day, Norville reads the story and is furious at the unfair caricature of himself. She comes into his office. He tasks his new secretary, the undercover Amy, with drafting a response to the anonymous female writer who exposed his silliness. He starts by saying Miss Archer, and says that I only call you Miss, because you seem to have missed the boat completely. He asks, how on earth would she know he is an imbecile when she doesn't even have the guts to interview him man-to-man or face-to-face? The wild speculations about his intelligence would be better suited to the page of Amazing Tales magazine. He then turns his face and asks her if she thinks he is an imbecile. Even further, he asked her if an imbecile would come up with such a great idea, and then he showed her the big circle he considers his invention for kids. His secretary could say more and excused herself to type this letter out, but right when she starts to walk, Norville changes his mind and told her not to send it. Even remarks that the writer must be unattractive given her refusal to include a picture with her byline. Amy, the very writer he's insulting, struggles to maintain her composure at this point and hide her own rising anger. That night, while snooping around Norville's office, Amy discovers a hidden tunnel that leads to the massive clock on the exterior of the Hudsucker building. There she meets Moses, the wise man who has been responsible for keeping the clock running for many years. He sees through her disguise and reveals the board's entire treacherous plot to her. The next day, Amy rushes to her editor with the explosive story, but he refuses to print it without concrete proof. As the company's annual Christmas gala arrives, Norville finds himself cornered by the wives of two board members, who playfully tease him about his obvious attraction to his secretary. Mooseburger's wife even shares that she, too, started as a secretary for her husband before they fell in love, and she became his wife. Mooseburger himself soon intervenes, pulling Norville away to introduce him to stockholders, hoping to give them a first-hand look at the imbecile running the company. Norville, trying to be sophisticated, attempts a Finnish phrase he learned in school to impress, but only to be promptly punched by the offended Finnish stockholder. Later, Amy finds an injured Norville and gently applies ice to his wound. She tries to confess her identity and how she is the one who labeled him an imbecile and the truth about everything else. But the moment never seems right. He kept interfering and changing her train of thought. Instead, overcome by their complicated emotions, the two share a passionate kiss that was initiated by Norville himself. Following this, Norville unveils a prototype of his circle idea. Although the board is baffled by the strange object, Musburger pushes to put it into production, certain its failure will be the final nail in the company's coffin. After being refined, tested, and priced, the creative department officially names the product the hula hoop. But once placed in the market, the sales are dismal. Stores slash prices until, in desperation, they begin tossing the unwanted hoops onto the street for free. But this is when the magic happens. Children discover the discarded hoops and begin playing with them. Now, with every child wanting their parents to buy them a hula hoop, the stores raise the prices, and in a surprising turn of events, the hula hoop became a sensational children's toy, generating colossal profits for Hudsucker Industries. Suddenly people, including the adults, who now joyfully use the toy, begin to take Norville seriously. His success becomes so great that he even receives a congratulatory phone call from President Eisenhower. However, the immense pressure to create an even bigger and better idea begins to change Norville. The press is constantly with him, asking questions and rumors about him, suddenly making him feel the best person on earth. Meanwhile, Norville is somehow coming out of his nutshell, and he transforms into an arrogant and womanizing tycoon, a shadow of his former humble self. As for the men upstairs, the company's stock soars to unprecedented heights, which is disastrous news for Musburger and the board. They had sold off most of their shares, expecting to buy them back cheaply, but now find themselves financially weakened and losing their grip on the company they tried to manipulate. One day, Amy storms into Norville's office. Furious, she confronts him about the company's recent decision to lay off 80% of its workforce, and is personally hurt that he has not spoken to her in a week. She scolds for becoming a spoiled and lazy man before resigning on the spot. Later, the elevator operator Buzz nervously approaches Norville with an idea for a flexible, bendy straw. Norville, in his newfound arrogance, dismisses the idea as idiotic and fires him on the spot. Buzz crawled on the floor and begged him to at least keep his job, but now that Norville is at the top of the company, he feels right to be harsh on the ones below him. That night, a janitor provides Musburger with a folder containing all the information about Amy's true identity as a reporter, including her articles and photographs. Armed with this leverage, Musburger confronts Norville. He reveals Amy's deception, and then delivers a final, crushing blow. He claims that the elevator operator Norville fired is now publicly accusing him of stealing the hula hoop idea. With a cruel glint in his eye, Sidney Musburger delivers the final blows to Norville's crumbling world. He reveals that Norville's trusted secretary is, in fact, the reporter Amy Archer, and that she has written a shocking expose, poised to destroy his reputation. Musburger adds, with feigned regret, that while Hudsucker Industries tried to kill the story, the newspaper is eager to publish such a sensational piece. He coldly informs Norville that due to these manufactured scandals, he will be stripped of his presidency. This, of course, is the culmination of the board's master plan to oust him and seize control. While this is happening, across town in the noisy newsroom of the Manhattan Argus, Amy Archer is in a heated argument with her editor. She now understands that Musburger lied. The elevator operator's claim wasn't real. It was planted. Musburger provided the fake story and made it look like Buzz had said it. Amy, no longer playing a part, tries to stop the article from going to print. She's no longer concerned with headlines. She knows the truth and wants to protect Norville. But her editor is focused on the front page, refuses to hold the story, saying it's already too good to delay. The next day, Musburger's plan moves forward quickly. A psychiatrist hired by Musburger himself is brought in to evaluate Norville. The checkup is short and unfair. It's clear the decision was made before the visit even began. The psychiatrist concludes that Norville is mentally unstable and unfit to continue as president. The board agrees and signs the papers to have him committed to a psychiatric facility. Shortly, the news that the company's president is being sent to a mental hospital causes panic in the stock market, as the shares drop in value, just as Musburger predicted, the board gets ready to buy them back cheaply. A completely isolated, Norville walks aimlessly through the city, feeling betrayed, humiliated, and heartbroken. He ends up sitting alone in a dark, quiet bar. He orders drinks and stares into space, trying to understand how things went so wrong so fast. The woman he trusted lied to him. The job he believed in has been taken away, and his invention is now being questioned. He feels like he has nothing left. While Norville drowns in his sorrow, Amy arrives at the bar. She looks guilty and tired, but determined. Sitting beside him, she apologizes sincerely for her role in the mess. She admits she was working as a reporter, but tells him she never meant to hurt him. Norville listens, but he's too wounded to accept her apology. Amy tries to keep his spirit up by telling him he could make a comeback. But Norville is completely hopeless. Regardless, she made sure to tell him he is much better than being a quitter. She told him to fight on and not to stay down for the sake of his old self. But instead of accepting her without saying much, Norville walks out of the bar, leaving Amy sitting there, full of regret. Outside, Norville runs into Buzz. Buzz, who now believes Musburger's lies, angrily accuses Norville of stealing the hula hoop idea. Without thinking, he punches Norville in the face. The punch draws a crowd, and all of a sudden Norville finds himself in a tough situation. People recognize Norville from the newspapers, and their opinions have already been shaped by the headlines. In no time, the crowd turns into a mob, shouting insults and chasing Norville through the streets. Norville runs blindly through the cold night, eventually reaching the one place that still means something to him: the Hudsucker Industries building. He walks through the empty halls and changes into his old mailroom uniform, the only identity he feels he still owns. Then, quietly, and without drawing attention, he takes the elevator to the top floor. There, he steps outside onto the narrow ledge, looking down at the city lights far below. Just like wearing Hudsucker before him, Norville stands on the edge, feeling like there's no way back as the clock tower chimes midnight to ring in the new year. Norville suddenly slips from his stand. For a brief moment he grabs the ledge with his hands, but his grip weakens. Nearby, the janitor Aloysius watches coldly. He says nothing. He doesn't offer help or anything. Just then, Norville loses his grip and begins to fall, just like Hudsucker did from the 44th floor. But suddenly, everything stops. Literally, the giant clock's gears grind to a halt. Moses, the man who has taken care of the Hudsucker clock for years, has jammed the machinery. Time freezes completely. People, cars, even the falling snow. Norville is suspended in midair, hanging between life and death. In that silent, frozen moment, wearing Hudsucker's spirit appears from the heavens. Calm and glowing faintly, he speaks to Norville with kindness. He asks why Norville never delivered the blue letter, the one he was supposed to hand over on his first day. Norville finally remembers. The letter is still in the pocket of his old uniform. Hudsucker tells him to read it. Norville unfolds the letter and discovers a shocking truth. In the letter, Hudsucker admits that he lived a lonely life. He says he made the mistake of choosing money over love, and that it never brought him happiness. That pain led to his death. But more importantly, the letter outlines his last instructions. Hudsucker explains that if the board picks Musburger, as president, Musburger gets nothing. But if the board cheats the process and picks someone else, thinking they can control that person, then that chosen individual inherits everything. That means, because of the board's manipulation, Norville Barnes now owns the Hudsucker Industries, all entirely for himself. While Norville is frozen in the air, absorbing this life-changing information, Aloysius enters the clock room and finds Moses. Furious about the clock being jammed, he attacks Moses, and the two fight. During the struggle, Aloysius manages to restart the gears, and Norville's fall continues, but in a strange twist. Aloysius' false teeth fly out of his mouth and land in the clock's gears, stopping time once more. Norville's body halts again, this time just inches above the ground. From above, Hudsucker reminds him to deliver the letter in the morning. Then, the dentures snap, the gears turn, and time resumes once again. Norville lands safely on the sidewalk without any harm caused. Upon him, he looks up, overjoyed and amazed that he's still alive. Filled with hope and determination, Norville rushes to find Amy. He returns to the same bar and sees her sitting there, devastated and alone. When they see each other, the pain between them melts away. They hug, talk, and forgive each other, ready to move forward together. The next morning, Norville walks confidently into the Hudsucker Industries boardroom. Dressed sharply, he hands over the long-forgotten blue letter as the board members read its contents. Their expressions shift from curiosity to horror. Mooseburger turns pale. The letter confirms everything. Norville is the rightful heir. The plan to ruin him has completely backfired. In a panic, Mooseburger rushes to the window just like Hudsucker once did. But before he can jump, the same psychiatrist who once labeled Norville as insane appears and evaluates Mooseburger. This time, the diagnosis is clear. Mooseburger is mentally unstable. The psychiatrist orders him to be taken to a sanitarium. With Mooseburger gone and the board silenced, Norville Barnes officially becomes the true president of Hudsucker Industries. But he's no longer the naive man who arrived in New York. He's learned from the pain, the lies, and the betrayal. Now, with Amy by his side, he's ready to lead with integrity and heart. As the film closes, Norville proudly unveils his next invention. A plastic flying disc. It's simple, fun, and full of potential. Just like the hula hoop before it. The Frisbee is ready to take the world by storm and lead the company into a new chapter of success.